Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Truesonians. This one, I am seriously tussling with. I be wondering about the things that honestly intrigue me, sincerely intrigue me. Like, what does it all mean and what is it for? And how we're in a world where information can come from all sorts of people, places, and things. And then we still must process it and churn it and decipher, decode. All of it must be inside all of it must be taken through a cycle of triage before it can then be implanted harvested, emerge from the soul, which is below the root chakra. And I'm, for years, have been tussling with how, because my kinfolk were robbed from their native tongue, then being torn from the value of words being used wisely. And even with the most of us over here in the USA landscape, the USA dreamscape, the USA nightmare on Elm Street, it's baffling because social media, we're now all clumped up together, right? And so there are people that will upload information that will give insight to how they see the world, and their reality was full of intelligence and history and blackness. And I'll say social blackness. I'll say societal blackness. Because this category has nothing to do with our biology. It's all a comprehensive construct. It's a classification. It's the brainchild of, no, I'll say it's the love child of the USA Magna Carta. It's the spinoff. Yeah, I like that better. Yeah, it's the spinoff from the original Magna Carta. So, because, which I'm just finding out from a lecture which I posted, I can't remember the name of it. I just watched a series from, and I know I wrote it down, I just don't remember where I put it. A series, oh yeah, here it is. A series from with Dr. Roy Casagrande, Casagranda, Dr. Roy. Folks around here get nicknames sometimes. And so it's titled A Brief History of the United States, the Grand Wealth Redistribution Scheme. It was part one was recorded, well, part one was uploaded 2023. When I say that series blew my mind, it blew my mind. Just talking with a friend recently, and I told him, I was like, it's a difference when you're sitting in a classroom and the one who's doing the talking, no, how did I say it? It's a difference when you're sitting in a classroom and the conversation is colonizer to colonizer versus colonizer to the colonized. See, our carefully curated curricula through what they call public school, which is actually compulsory schooling, meaning forcing you to learn this shit so that you could be a productive worker. There's so much I want to say. So, realities are not equal. They're not even equitable. When you think about how information flows, how it ebbs and flows, how information is determined, who can have it and who can't, how certain historical blind spots it's almost like the conversations that are between teachers versus the conversation between teacher and student. The conversation amongst those that were doing the colonizing, legacy foundation included, hit different than those conversations amongst those that were colonized. And so listening to him speak in this lecture to a group of students that know the nooks and crannies of their ancestors' plights, meaning their ancestors being the colonizers. See, it's a different level, it's a different flavor of education. Just like I used to always say, there's a difference, and I only knew this because I was in the room. There's a difference between conversations amongst marketers versus the conversation from marketer to consumer. And public education is a form of consumerism and it's not me talking. There's a preponderance of evidence. Shout out to Dr. Joy DeGroot. There's a preponderance of evidence. And so the things that were being discussed in this lecture showed me just how much realities are not equal. And I know I'm talking to the choir, but context and language matters. Terms and condition matter. So I said I was going to spend the rest of the summer getting very clear on me using my words wisely and not get caught up twined up in those that don't. And I had a entire, speaking of which, transcript for this particular brainstorm is in progress. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I'm closer to being done than not. So I've already mentally tussled with it. That's usually what takes so long for me to upload stuff, because my brainstorms are like slow cooked meals, which is another thing in terms of reality. The differentiations between reality, because I've even been noticing how those that have had a job and have had reoccurring income on the dot, like consistently, held jobs for 30 years, never missed a beat, paycheck every 2 weeks, or bi-weekly, or however your pay scale was, it met you on the nose, on schedule. Those type of people speak with a certain type of absolution. They require, they demand predictability. They are those that, honestly, with no shade, they do not know what it's like to not know when the next is coming in. And that, in my opinion, develops an entirely different sense or flavor of character. Those that have lived in the same home for years, decades even, have no idea what it's like to be pushing all your shit in a cart, not knowing if somebody's gonna rob you of everything you own in your sleep. You have to weather the elements. I even notice those that are not even good at weathering the elements, the seasons. When it's hot, they trying to run to the cold. When it's cold, they trying to run to the hot. And I'm included in that sometimes, but I've been challenging myself to sit in the element, to commune with the raw presence of that particular element. And I will say the summer is the roughest because of my Capricorn nature and Cancer season being completely opposite of. So I am often at my most vulnerable in June and July. And I've noticed this. I was noticing this way before I had words or theory or curriculum for it. And I just used to notice, it was like, man, June and July whooped my ass. And it was every year on top of like clockwork. Just like I am low on energy. I really just want to cocoon and feel safe. Learning to do that. Learning to do that without any type of structure for it is such an unpredictable feat. And so realities are not created equal. Which takes me to my thoughts about how these generalizations is going to take us out. These generalizations are going to take us out. Especially that whole women ain't shit, which is a fucking lie. Men ain't shit, which is a fucking lie. And when I hear these things, I really be wanting people to like hone in on that, because who you talking about for real, for real? There's no way in the world I could ever fix my mouth to say completely blanketed men ain't shit. Because my dad is everything. My sons, my nephews, my cousins, even my ex-husband, everything. And it has not one thing to do with romance. See, it makes me wonder how much of we be hemorrhaging our sentiment over romance gone wrong without itemizing the parts we played, because we be wanting romance so bad. You want to talk about addictions? You want to talk about being addicted to romance? You want to talk about that? You want to talk about being addicted to attention and affluence and comfort? And so these addictions, because they are socially and widely accepted, glorified even, is where I believe the counteraction belongs. And I know that there is this popular conversation that is now roaming through cyberspace about men need to step up and create homes. The men in my world do. The men in my world hang out with their children. And it might not be exactly the way they would like it or want it, because it's still a whole bunch of red tape dealing with this co-parenting thing that is not the cookie cutter standard that the therapist will tell you about. It's not the mainstream standard of co-parenting. The men in my circle are learning how to customize their own through trial and error, testing out what works and what doesn't work. And the men in my world are standing 10 toes down. We're going to work this shit out. You're not the boss of me, so I will, as 50% investor in this kid here, I'll be coming to get her, coming to get him, spending time with him, and I'm not about to be asking you permission. We will talk so that we can coordinate, so we can sync. You got to coordinate so we can synchronize schedules with all respect intact. Not unless the kid says, I want to be with one or the other parent. And in my opinion, just because of my childhood, and yes, I come with tons of flaws and projections and shortcomings and all the shit that come along with human life. Yeah, I got all that. But what I'm not going to do is act like these elements and aspects don't exist in my world. And I'm not sure who's populating or who got the battery in the narrative that's still talking shit about dads aren't creating homes. They are. They are. And I know I'm not just the exception to the rule. My dad has maintained home ever since I can remember. My ex-husband maintains home ever since I can remember. My oldest son. And I stumbled for a minute because I have others that call me mom that aren't my biological. And so I was thinking about them too. My best friend has maintained home ever since we've graduated from high school and we went off to do work. Like, he's always maintained home. That's why I would often joke with him about he's one of the stellar bachelors. Just because of the way he wasn't the type to be readily shacking up. Now, that doesn't mean he ain't ever lived with a woman or was close to marriage or whatever have you, because he was. But he did not hesitate to go establish his own. And it wasn't like this old shabby place either. Walking up in there, you would think a woman was around. Because we were best friends, I knew better. And that's why I'm going to continue to maintain to say that the relationships between me and dudes that are not trying to get at me are a lot more wholesome. And no, my best friend is not gay. So many people think that because I did 20 years in a salon, when I talk about my male best friend, they automatically think he gay because of these stereotypes about straight black men doing this or doing that or ain't shit. I don't know whose world they be reflecting, but it just be making me feel like, Thea, you need to speak up a little bit more. You need to speak up a little bit more about the men in your circle. And it doesn't mean they perfect. Ain't none of us perfect. The third dimension, if it don't promise you nothing else, it's going to promise you imperfection. And that's the whole fucking shit. That's the reason why we're here. We're here to feel and experience and ponder imperfection, which takes me to the cosmos. I have been noticing how so many black folk continue to want to get tussled up in mainstream astrology. I've been hanging out with Gemini Brown for a minute now. But then Stormy Grace, Coach Jamal Robinson, 720 Astrology. And I know that there's and Island Turtle, Balmy Spirit. I've been hanging with them and all of them. Like the only one that I've just started tapping into is 720 Astrology, but and Sister Myra Moss and Baba C. Freeman L. So I have been, and I'm not even an astrologer. I am a seeker of certain self-discovery truths. I tap into astrology and tarot and oracle love languages solely for my self-discovery. But because I'm a sharer, I like to share information. I really truly believe that the reason why we stay on the defensive, offensive, defensive. Yeah, I think that the reason why we stay in such passive intellectual frequencies is because we are the folks that were not it's not coming to me that we me and my kinfolk are the ones that intelligence or the habits to seek were ripped from us. And so being able to gain that back as a collective is really, really slow. Slowly but surely, but it's really slow. And so the conversations around the dining room table or just naturally meeting up in the family room, having these deep, concentrative conversations was not part of our reality for so very long. To be able to discern or have a legacy of a particular flavor of intelligence was ripped from us, and we had, it was like a patchwork. Being able to comprehend fluently, critical think fluently, adequately speak fluently, have the journals and the artifacts to look at and explore, and to literally sit and write about something that you have been analyzing. You can't do that if you're struggling to keep up with a 9-to-5 and children and daycare and insurance and fucking tickets and taxes and Because then what you really want to do is numb. And then so that which you put in front of your eyes is bullshit, because and it's microwavable, and it's always doing this. Like, you really don't have time to just sit and focus. And I'm actually looking at a bouquet of flowers right now. So, like, there are folks that are on another angle of Black life that literally can take an entire day and just marvel at a bouquet and write about it. Can sit on the water and literally pace the rhythm of the waves and write about it. Can sit without it being perceived as perverted. Can sit and marvel at a naked body and paint it and sculpt it and sketch it. Not everyone are workers. They're literally people that depend on people to work so that they can have this thing called life of leisure. I'm not even talking about that bastard ass thing called soft life. No, I mean, it's an entire legacy of people that don't have a clue what it means to have to get it from the mud, to literally have to walk through work. Walk through work. I ain't saying walk to work. Walk through work. 30-year tenure to uphold those at the top of their shoulders. And it's all acceptable because we continue to tell people to stay away from the low vibes, which is the roots. And nobody ever be talking about this strange fruit. Nobody ever talks about the strange fruit. So I'm going to tell you what the strange fruit is. The strange fruit is to continue to let the narrative go by to say that men ain't shit, women ain't shit. It's a fucking lie. And if that is not you, you know what to do. And I'm not even saying that the dads or the men or the women in question ought to be the ones yelling from the rooftop about, I do this and I do. No, those around them that know they do it. We are the ones that's supposed to be talking about it. And we have this weird tendency to figure like we're going to punish people because we would prefer to hit record and talk about all the shit they ain't doing or how they done pissed us off. That's life. That's life. So I'm going to end this one with this. Mainstream astrology is superficial. And I was going on to say that on a segment that I watched yesterday with 720 Astrology, Coach Jamal made a really good point when he said that, you know, I wrote it down right. You can't study astrology without studying mythology. And so I noticed how we have gotten so addicted to the mainstream superficial side of astrology. And I'm going to equate it to this because I also read a few times where astrology was being dismissed as some type of fluke, some type of crackpot type of studies. And so astrology is always based on spectrum. It's always based on archetype. It is always based on the ebbs and the flows of energetic frequencies, meaning that this is the way it can be today, and it won't necessarily be that way tomorrow, and it still is what it is. And the best thing that I can equate to this is Nikes. I've seen tons of different kinds of Nikes. It's still a Nike. So to think that a Capricorn, different from this Capricorn, different from this Capricorn, kind of throws the whole study of astrology out the window is straight ludicrous. It's superficial is what it is. Like Mama Odie say on The Princess and the Frog, you got to dig a little deeper to the roots. And if you are believing people who tell you to stay away from low vibes, count yourself part of the problem. Your ignorance, you're going to continue to stumble over. Because I've seen white Nikes, I've seen black Nikes, I've seen colorful Nikes, I've seen neon Nikes, but it's still a Nike. I've seen Nike with cleats, I've seen high-top Nikes, I've seen low-top Nikes, I've seen flip-flop Nikes, it's still a Nike. So just because you're in a room full of Capricorns and they all act different does not mean they're not a Capricorn. Think about a Long Island iced tea. All of them, every zodiac is a spectrum in itself. And then it connects to the opposite one so that you can get the whole spectrum. Behavior is according to nature and nurture. You can have two Capricorns, one raised in the suburbs, one raised in the hood. You're going to have two different kinds of Capricorns. You may have a Capricorn that is full of love and affection and is generous and got garden flowers all over the place and is well-dressed and then retire with a 30-year stellar record. And then you can have a Capricorn that was raised in the gutter. Cuss a lot, don't really know how to read or write, struggled through school, had to get it where they could get it, labeled a criminal, has a felony on his back, don't necessarily know what it's like to have a home-cooked meal. Still a Capricorn, though. Because there are these consistencies. There are certain qualities. There's a certain quality you can depend on Nike to have. Even though it's a corporate woo, sweatshops, woo. You ain't never hear me tell you neither one of those Capricorns was perfect. But the fact of the matter is, it's a spectrum. And it really does matter about its environment and its supporting roles around it. The diamond in the rough is still a diamond. Yeah. So, yeah. So, of course, I'm still rocking with this. Real quick. And so, months ago, I remember I presented this particular set of cards to... Oh, hold on. Because I have these this way for a reason. But I remember I... presented this, and I even did a two-parter on this particular set, and there's the Four Wands and the Queen and the Queen of Wands. But for months I have been holding and churning, especially in terms of slow cooked meals. I will, but I'm not really a fan of microwavable foods or fast foods. I don't even particularly like going in these restaurants. I don't like strangers handling my food too much because that's energy too. And I'm a Capricorn. So I will chew on something and repurpose, and that's why I'm going to always say one man's trash is another one's treasure. Like I very rarely do I rush through something. And interestingly enough, there's a whole new message that has come through. I'm not sure if I'll be sharing it, but I probably will, but it may still take a little time. But I just wanted to pop this into the conversation to say, like, when you learn this language for yourself, stop, because if you show up to these general readings, it's microwavable. I'm not saying it's not nourishment. I'm not even saying that you won't have spectacular resonance with it. But there's something about the continuation of a conversation. I used to have a friend, I kind of miss him. I used to have a friend that if he had to get off the phone or something was going, he didn't do the "I'll call you back." He would say, "Let's bookmark this." He was very keen on not prematurely leaving a conversation. So he would, okay, we're going to bookmark this right here. Meaning the conversation I don't want to miss. I got to go right now. Got to pause it. But we need to circle back to this. We need to pick this up where we left off. It was such a delight having conversations with him. And so, yeah, I'm gonna pull this in from CircleBlack and say, you know, this is how this conversation has been going on. Because for months I've been re-immersion. I've been circling black to this conversation, which I think may be some of the reasons why we struggle with inside this rippling effect, because we fail to bookmark conversations. We bookmark everything else and failing to realize that to circle black to a conversation that you're having with people that you truly honor, respect, and are in tune with is priceless. So I'm going to close with this. The book, Daring Greatly, I got, when did I get this book? I got this book April 8th, 2015, and have been rocking with it periodically. Another thing Coach Jamal said yesterday that really honed in on my character is that I don't read books cover to cover. Who said do this? Baba Kaba. I want to say Bobby Hemmett as well. Sister Myra Moss. There's a certain group of there is a certain group of, I want to call them instructors, but there's a certain group of people that will do way more than just teach you. And there used to be this running thing with those that would instruct you on how to actually study. They invested in your quality of study. So it wasn't like, I'm going to present this to you and you're going to have to know it on the first go. No, they encouraged you to circle back, circle back, circle back. And they instructed you to, I knew it was another one. And this is the one I was stumped on because it was like I was determined I would. Dr. Greg Carr. Tap into the table of contents. Because you can have several books open that has this running frequency, this running, like there's a chapter from this one, there's a chapter from this one, there's a chapter from this one, and they all string together according to the chapter, the quality of the chapter. That's not right. The substance of the chapter, what's actually in the chapter. And so that is one of the reasons why I don't read for entertainment, even if it's a fairy tale. There's a lesson somewhere. I know it is. I know it is. So I don't even show up to music videos to be entertained. Anyway, so I've been rocking with this for a while, and but this one ain't as tabbed as my other ones. But so here's the closing remarks. And it is a passage that was taken from the Theodore Roosevelt speech, Citizen in the Republic. And I'm going to always call it my Exhibit A. You can see that there. It's my Exhibit A. It's always my Exhibit A. And mainly because the stuff that I talk about isn't all that popular. This is the reason why I say that I walk in a frequency of uncommon sense. I'm never with the trend. I'm never with the hoopla. I'm never with the crowd. I used to hate that. I used to have so much shame around not being part of the popular crew. And then I started thinking about it like, once y'all get to stampeding and acting crazy, I'm over here watching all that shit. It's not the critic who counts. Not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives violently. I always tear that word up. Violently, Valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails by daring greatly. I say you got it. That's what I say. And I say all the tussling you doing builds muscle and it gives flavor to your character. Understand you are a slow-cooked, homegrown, big mama meal. And big mama don't cut no corners. So if that means you have to sit there and shuck that fresh corn, so, yeah, until next time, I really do wish you well.